Shall we move to the next topic then? People, students, anything?
Okay.
Okay. What about others? No, I need to have a class representative. So I can
Okay,
ask
sir.
all the questions from that person. Okay. We'll go to the today's topic then. Okay, we are going to learn about artificial neural networks. Are there any students who came through the external degree program of the math department? Anyone who came through that? There's an external degree program conducted by the Colombo math department. Anyone came from there? Because there we covered something similar like this one. No one. So this is the first time. Okay. Have you heard about the word called artificial neural networks? Yes, no, maybe. Have heard, can't remember.
Yeah, you are splitting the operation of a normal neuron mathematically.
Okay. Right. We'll start from the beginning. So here's what we are going to cover. We are going to do some introduction about what is neural network, why it is required, and things like that. Then we are going to develop some of them. There will be two different approaches. First one will be we will be building from scratch. So they won't be complicated ones. They will be very simplified ones, but it will allow you to understand certain concepts. However, the practical usage might be limited. Then we will use some of the built-in libraries taught by other people to do some practical kind of predictions. Of course, you can develop them from the scratch, but it will take more than 2 weeks, which is given in this particular period for our lectures. And in addition, we will be looking at different limitations, different practical aspects and things like that. Okay, so let's look at different problem types we face in everyday life. Now we are using computer system in multiple places, right? Do you know, can you give some examples of places where we can use computers? Places that we use computers to solve problems or help us do certain things. For example, in the banking industry, you can use computer system to store the accounting details, calculate the interest rates, things like that. Any other examples?
Research centers and institutes.
Sorry, I could not hear you clearly. Can you please
Research
repeat it?
centers and institutes.
Okay, for what purposes?
Like to also to find the information as well as to store data, build models.
Okay, good. Any other answers? Okay, where do we not use the computers that much? We are still doing certain amount of problem solving using humans, right?
Like
Well,
retail stores.
Sorry, again, your sound is not loud enough.
In retail stores, we are not using computers and like mostly doing by using humans calculations.
Yes, but that's mainly because I think they don't have the money to buy a computer system. But let's say even if you have money, there are certain places that, for example, let's say in hospital. Right? Now, when a doctor diagnoses a person, usually channeling fees is quite high, right? But let's say you have a computer program to do the diagnosis. Right? You buy it for a one time, maybe some large corporate hospital system, and ask the computer to do it. Maybe a technician to enter the details, and computer will spit out, okay, you have this problem, you should do this diagnosis, things like that. But it's reality, right? Why is that? Any other places like that? It's not done because not of the money, but because there's a technical problem. What about driving? What do you think about driving? Are there self-driving cars in the world?
I think companies like Tesla are developing this.
Yeah, Tesla and Google have both have certain amount of self-driving cars. They call it as aid, not exactly self-driving. Here's a new question. Now, in the US, they might be able to self-drive. Do you think Tesla will be able to self-drive in PETA, in traffic cover?
Because the driving environment is so uncertain, therefore it may not be suitable.
Yeah, in US they might, but in if it come to somewhere in Sri Lanka, I am not sure if the car will be able to drive it. Right? There are because it makes certain assumptions, right? For example, you should overtake from the right hand side, not in Sri Lanka, and you should not cut single lanes and like that. So I'm not sure they will be valid in here, right? So you will notice there are certain places where we can use computers, like banking industry, accountings, and things like that. They are used for a very extensive, and they have become a major part of it. They make it very easy. For example, if you think about human per human making the accounts manually using a calculator and a computer system making it, most probably the computer system will be more accurate and more fast, more efficient and cost effective also. But if it came to something like driving, or maybe writing a novel, or maybe creating a new recipe for a certain food, or creating advertisement, then computer seems to be lacking that kind of thing. So there are two different distinctions. They are mainly based on how these problems are made. For example, we can look at the data regarding this particular questions or scenarios, instructions, and how hard for a computer to solve it. Sometimes you have very precise data, right? Like in accounting system, if you deposit 1,000 rupees for a bank, it's a exact amount, 1,000. It's not close to 1,000, less than some 1,000, something like that. So some data is very precise, but sometimes certain data is no longer there. For example, if you're diagnosing a person, you can't ask that person to get all the possible medical tests, right? Then that person will not come. So you will ask only the most probable. You will sort of like guess, okay, this might be the problem this person is having, and ask several tests to be conducted, maybe a full blood check and few other tests, so you can get some idea. Based on that only you can proceed. So certain data is missing. You are not asking everything. You only get part of the data. And if you think something like driving, again, there's so many noise and all the other things come in there, right? You don't get that perfect straight line and exactly marked lanes, and those things are no longer there, right? There are a certain amount of missing data, noise, and everything. Right? So when you get those things like imperfections, noises, and lost data, the conventional programs are not able to handle it, right? And also sometimes we don't know the rules. Conventional programming person need to know the rules, so he would be the one who write the code, right? Because computer does what we tells it. That's what we have been doing so far. We gave certain instruction through Python, computer executed it. But if we ourselves don't know how to write the program, then we are sort of in a problem. Let's say, for example, I want to identify dogs and cats. Can you suggest me a way, photos, okay? Can you suggest me a way to identify photos of dogs from photos of cats? What kind of criteria can we use? Any idea?
Yeah, face shape and like differences, such as cats have whiskers and dogs don't, something like that.
Okay, so how do you define something like a shape? How can you tell the computer? Can we say it's a circle with this radius? I mean, they also face in different places like that.
Through a test running, like you make the computer program itself by looking at some pictures and then like that.
Yes, we have to come up with something like this because it's not like calculating interest rate. So if you want to calculate interest rate, you can say, okay, get the initial money multiplied by the interest rate and add it to the previous capital, you get the new capital. If you are just doing something like the grade of a student, you can say, okay, between these marks, this is the grade, between these marks, this is the grade, likewise. But when it comes to practical problems, like how do you drive something, it's not exactly possible to define the set of rules. They are sort of like blurred. Even ourselves, we are not sometimes aware. When we see a cat, we automatically identify it as a cat. But if we are to pinpoint it, why do you call it as a cat? Which properties? It's not easy to define. It's like a collection of small things together. But it's not possible for us to exactly pinpoint and say, this is why we call it as a cat. So the same thing is happening for other certain problems as well. Right. And also another problem is the computational complexity. That means sometimes certain problems are solvable by the computer, but unfortunately, they are too complicated. Complicated means a computer will take a lot of time to solve that problem. Sometimes we can't wait for that amount of time for the computer to solve it. That's again another problem. So to overcome them, we have a different type of computing. The normal conventional programming is known as hard computing, but we have something called a soft computing. So the goal of the soft computing is to deal with imprecise, uncertain, and partial truths. Right? And it tries to do it by trying to mimicking the way humans think. And also it tries to get a good answer within a reasonable period. Now there's a difference between a good answer and a perfect answer. In maths, you might want to get the exactly correct perfect answer. But in everyday life, like business or something, a good answer might be sufficient. You don't want the exactly optimized solution. Maybe a good answer is sufficient because finding the exact solution might take much more time. Right? So there are three branches in the soft computing. They are the artificial neural network, genetic algorithms, and fuzzy logic. So we will be talking about artificial neural networks in this session. Later on, we will learn about genetic algorithms as well. And perhaps, maybe, if the time is there, we might also touch upon the fuzzy. But I think it's not in the syllabus. So I don't think we will be able to touch it. Right. Let's look at the artificial neural network and the conventional programming. So if you look at the normal program, this is what it looks like. You have your hard-coded program. Now somebody need to look at the question and write the rules. Okay, if you want to solve it, this is how you should do it. Multiply this number by this number, add this one, print the answer, like that. So we already know the rules. Humans write the rules, we feed some input data, and we get the output. So this is how a hard computing works. It's similar to the one that we had been doing so far. So if you remember that pass-fail scenario, or sorting some fruits or something, we wrote the program. So we wrote the rules, we input some data, and we got the output. So neural networks are different. The one that I'm going to show you is mostly based on supervised learning. There's another category called unsupervised. It's slightly different, but you get the idea from this particular image. So in neural networks, inputs and outputs are different. It comes with two different phases. First, you have a training phase. In the training phase, we give it the input data and the output data. And the purpose of the neural network to get the rules. Okay, so you see the main difference. In here, we input the rules and get the output. Here, we input the output and get the rules. The reason I call it as supervised is for certain set of data, we need to have the correct output. We need to have a sample with the correct output. So based on that output and input, neural network can come up with a rule set. So that's why I said it's supervised. There is another network that can do it even without the output. We just give it the input data and it do a certain classification and come out with a set of rules. But for this one, we will be using the supervised one. So we'll follow this one. Then what's going to happen? Once the neural network identify the rules, this process is known as training. Then we can use that train network to predict the output. Right? Once this step is completed, we can use that identified rules to predict new outputs. So now you can input some new data, something that you don't know the exact output, and get the prediction from here. For example, you have the data of previous 2 years rainfall, temperature, and humidity. So your target is to predict it's going to rain or not based on the humidity, temperature, and maybe precipitation index. Right? So for the last 2 years data, you can feed it here. You can say, okay, temperature is this, humidity is this, precipitation index is this, and this was the result. It rained this amount of millimeters. And in the following day, this was the humidity and temperature and everything. This is the amount of rainfall. So like that, you can give a set of data. So based on it, neural network will come up with a set of rules. Okay, when the temperature is like this and humidity is like this, it's going to rain. If temperature is low and humidity is high, then you don't get any rain. Like that, it can deduce certain rules. So once you have this set of rules, you have a trained network. Now you can input today's temperature, humidity, and everything and get a prediction of whether it's going to rain or not tomorrow. So that's the idea behind this neural networks. Is it clear for you? The main difference? Hello, are you there? Students? Lahiru, another?
Yes, sir.
Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Lakmal, what about you?
Okay, sir. Yes.
Okay, and we'll move next one. So what is actually neural network? There are different definitions, so I like this one. It's a single sentence, but it captures the essence of neural networks. A neural network. Okay, so from this point onward, when we say neural network, I am meaning artificial neural networks. Because there are biological neural networks as well. Your brain, your nervous system, everything is actually a biological neural network. But in this program, when we say ANN, we are basically referring artificial ones, right? Okay, so ANN is a collection of simple processes connected together to perform processing and representation of data as a group. Neural network is a collection of simple processes connected together to perform processing and representation of data as a group. So there are some keywords there. First thing, it's a collection. So although we call neural network as a single entity, it is made from a collection, not a single one, not like a supercomputer. It's made from small entities. What are these entities? These small units are simple processors. So when I'm saying simple processors, I am talking in the sense of functionality. Right? These things are doing only very simple things. I am not talking it as a physical implementation. I am not saying simple separate ICs, separate microcontrollers, separate computers, not like that. Simple processors means they do only a simple thing, maybe adding two numbers, multiplying two numbers, like that, doing a simple process. Okay, not the physical implementation. Maybe they are all put together in a supercomputer. That's not the case. What I'm talking is simple things. They do only simple things, right? So it's a collection of devices or things or functions that do very simple things. And what about these simple processes? They are connected together. So they are not working in isolation, they are working together, right? And together they perform the processing and the representation of data as a group. So when we say it's doing some processing, the neural network is doing some processing, basically it's the whole collection of these small processors doing that processing. Right? So if you look at it like, if you look at it in the biological sense, that also makes sense, right? For example, if you look at a single neuron in our brain, it's a very simple thing. It can't do much. Right? It basically gets a signal, and if it's above a threshold, it fires. That's basically what it does. So it's a very simple thing. See, doing a simple process, but together they make our brain. Right? So now brain is a very powerful thing. Right? So together as a group, the brain is able to perform many calculations, identify certain things like the difference between cat and dog, and learn this kind of new technologies, and all these things can be done. Right? So that is done by the collection of things. And another important thing is you can't pinpoint and say, okay, this neuron is representing this particular data. You can't do it like that, right? For example, let's say I ask you to memorize this definition, right? So it has, let's say, 100 words, sorry, 100 characters, 100 letters. I can't look into your brain and say, okay, the word collection is stored in this particular neuron. The full stop at the end of this sentence is stored at this particular neuron. You can't pinpoint it and do it. It's stored in a distributed manner, right? So it's kind of like a black box. You can't exactly understand it by logic, which part is doing what, but it as a whole, As a group, it do it. So the same is true for the artificial neural networks. Simple units are there. They do very simple things. They are connected together, and together they do this processing and storing of data and everything, right? So that definition is very important. It will give you an idea of what the neural network is, right? Now I mentioned there are different types of neural networks. There are so many types of neural networks. Here are few. We have feed-forward networks, recurrent networks, radial bias, convolutional, long short-term memory, and so many others. The one we are going to look at will be feed-forward networks. That will be the main category. If we have time, we will look at the convolutional neural networks as well, if we have time. So how are they categorized? They're categorized based on how the neurons are connected together. Now, in the definition I mentioned, it's a collection of simple processes. Now, each simple process is called a neuron, right? So how each neuron is connected to others. Based on the connection structure, connection architecture, you have all these different types. They all have their own advantages and disadvantages, right? So this is our main target, feed-forward network. Here's what it looks like. You have inputs here, you have outputs here, and these are the neurons. And you can see they are sort of like in a layered structure. So this stack is known as a layer, another layer, another layer. So you have 3 layers. In the feed-forward architecture, now I mentioned there are different architectures. In the feed-forward one, you have layers like this one. And for each neuron, you will notice there are inputs. So these are the inputs coming to this neuron. And here you have the outputs. So in a layer, there are no interconnections. So inside the layers, there are no connections. This neuron is not connected to any of the other neurons in this layer. They are independent. Similar for this one, similar for this one. So what's happening is, if you look at the layer, its inputs. Input for a neuron in a particular layer comes from the layer before that one, previous to that one. So from this layer, this one gets inputs. You can see it's coming from different ones. And output from this neuron will go to the next layer. So you can see the data is actually moving in one direction, in the forward direction. You have your original inputs, which can be rainfall, precipitation, or things like that, input data. These are the outputs, things we want to predict or classify or categorize. So we have inputs, the values from here, they come here, go through this neuron and to the next one and to the next one and to the output. So data is always moving in this forward direction. It's not going in this parallel direction like this, and it doesn't have any loops like this. If you have loops, you can call it as a recurrent network, and memory network like that. You have different structures. But in feed-forward, you don't have loops. It just moves in the forward direction. So that is why it's called a feed-forward network. Feed-forward network, you have multiple layers. Data is always fed to the forward direction, from one layer to another layer, from that to the next one, and finally to the output layer. And inside the layer, you don't have interconnection between the neurons. Right? Neurons in the same layer doesn't have any connections between them. The ones inside here are known as the hidden layers. This is the input, this is the output, and anything in between is the hidden layer. So that's the structure. If you're clear about the structure, we can look at a single neuron and see how it's going to work. Any clarifications, questions, feedbacks, anything? Okay, no questions. Sajini, what about you? Any questions? Is it clear? Are you there, Sajini?
Yes, sir.
Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who else? Lakshmi, both have knees. What about you? Is
Yes.
it okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Right. So let's look at a single neuron. So that means we are going to zoom into one of these. Let's mainly mean from things like this. So you will notice it has inputs and outputs. One thing you should notice, it can have multiple inputs, but it can have only one output. Each neuron can have only one output. So if you're wondering how all these things are getting like this, is the same output distributed to all the other neurons. So if you have output, let's say value 5 here, then that value 5 will be the copied and sent to all the other neurons. So one output, it can be duplicated to other neurons, but only one. So whatever the value comes here will be the same for all the 3 neurons inputs. But for the input side, you can have multiple inputs like this. Now for each input, you have something called a weight. Weight is a number, basically a real number. The way a neuron function is, it will take an input. Now input again should be a number. You can't have things like characters, strings, other data types are not valid. You should always have an input. That means it can't be blank. It can't be empty. You should always have a number as an input. It can be positive, it can be negative, it can be fractional, but a number. Weight itself is again a number. So the way neuron works is, it will take an input. Let's say this one is 1 and weight is 0.5. It will multiply input by the weight. So 1 into 0.5 means half. Similar will happen to all the inputs. So they are all numbers. This number multiplied by this number, this one multiplied by this one multiplied by this one. So like that, each input multiplied by respective weight. So then you get another set of numbers. They are added together. That's what this sigma min means. This into this into this, and this into this, and this into this, and all those numbers are added together. After doing the addition, you get something called a transfer function. You get something called a transfer function, sometimes known as activation function for certain cases. So that number, the single number, now you have a single number because you have added all those numbers together. This single number is fed through the transfer function. Now don't worry about that complexity of the name. It's a very simple scenario. The transfer function converts that single number into a different number. There are different transfer functions. However, they are all very simple. Right? Neuron itself is simple, so the transfer function itself is also simple. For example, if you have a linear transfer function, it basically means the input is same as the output. So whatever you added together will be the output. If you have something like a hard limit, if you have something like a hard limit, that basically means you are going to compare that summation with another fixed constant, let's say 5. If your summed value is larger than 5, output is 1. Otherwise, output is 0. So it's very straightforward. So in the case of hard limit, you are basically comparing those two numbers. Right. So let's look at this scenario. Can you tell me what will be the sigma value for this neuron? What is the sigma value for this neuron?
0.5.
Okay, one person says 0.5. What about others?
Yes, sir, 0.5.
Okay. Anyone else with different answers? No, everyone thinks it's 0.5. Okay. It's actually 0.5. Let's say this is a hard limit. My transfer function is hard limit, and it's comparing the net value with this threshold. So the threshold for this transfer function is 0. Threshold is 0. So what will be the output of my neuron? What will be the output of my neuron?
Threshold. Can you explain it?
So hard limit means it's going to compare this input with some constant inside here. If this value is larger than that constant, output becomes 1. If this value is less than that threshold, output becomes 0. Now the threshold for this transfer function is 0. Then what will be the output from here?
1.
It will be 1, right? So 0.5 is larger than 0, which is the threshold value. So the output should be 1. Okay. So that is how a neuron works. Is it clear for everyone? Do I need to explain it again? Is it okay? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then we will move to the next slide. So how are we going to use this neural network to solve problems? Right? So as I mentioned in the earlier slide, this is a different technology. We are not going to code our answer into the neural network. Instead, we are going to ask it to learn the rules by itself. So how can it learn the rules by itself? For that, we have to show it some examples. So, you know, when you are learning yourself, there are two different ways of learning. One method is to learn the theory and follow the theory and do it. Another way of learning something is doing it by examples, right? Sometimes in a math problem, you first learn about a particular theory. And based on that theory, you can do the rest of the calculations. Sometimes you look at certain examples, similar questions solved. And based on that, you get to understand, okay, if this value is like this, you have to multiply by this to get the answer, something like that. Right? So neural network is using that second method. We have to show it some examples so it can learn the rules. So this set of examples, we call it as sample data. We call it as sample data. So where are those rules stored? Now that's the next question. Now, as I mentioned, this is a distributed system. So when we say rules, We can't pinpoint in one place and say, okay, this is a if condition, this is a then condition. It's not like that. It's a distributed system. So what's going to happen is, based on the example, neural network will try to adjust the weights. Now we learn neurons have weights. So depending on the weights, the output will change, right? So if you have different set of weights for these neurons, the output will be different. Even for the same input, output can be changed if you change the weights. So what's happening is, neural network in the training phase will try to adjust the weights, so it will learn something. So what do you mean by learn something? What it basically doing is, it tries to reduce the error or wrong answers by adjusting the weights, right? So what's going to happen is, we are going to give it some example with a known solution. So based on that input example, neural network will predict something. Then there's another algorithm that look at what the neural network has predicted and the actual or the correct answer. So it will compare it. That second algorithm will compare the prediction from the neural network and the actual answer, the correct answer. So it will be able to guess whether the neural network is predicting correctly or if there's an error, there's a difference. If there's a difference, it can also measure how much of a difference it is. Is it a very big error or is it a small error? Right? Based on the error, it will make small changes to the weight. It will make some slight changes to the weight. It will not immediately make the neural network function 100% accurate, but the performance will slightly increase. Right? Because that change of weights, the performance will slightly increase. Then you will repeat it for another sample, another one like that. If you have 100 samples, you will repeat it for all the 100 samples. After that repetition, we call it as one epoch. After that one epoch, you will have a slightly better neural network. It will perform better, but you can't get away with the one epoch or one iteration. Instead, you have to repeat it multiple times, maybe 1,000 times. Each time it go through them, the weights will be slightly adjusted to make the error reduce. So at the end, you will have a neural network that can look at the sample data and give the correct answer. So this process of adjusting the weight is known as the training, sometimes known as learning, right? Depending on which perspective you are using. So once you have a trained neural network, you can show it some other unknown data and get its prediction. So that's how the neural network works. So there are many algorithms to adjust the weights. Now I mentioned weight adjustment is the training process. Right? So if you look at the first one, so I'm talking about this one. If you just input this data to some random neural network, your output will be completely wrong because it has no idea what the rules are. So in the first step, we will feed it both input and output data, and the training algorithm will adjust the weights. So at the end, you will have a trained network. So it knows basically the rules. So when we mean rules, it's not written rules, it's a set of weights that are able to predict correctly. Once it is trained, you can use it for simulating and getting the answers. So that is the idea. Right. So there are two types of training. One is called the supervised training. So that is the one we are going to cover. So in this case, we will show it the correct answer as well. Right. So it will know the correct answer. It can itself calculate the error and do it. But there's another one called unsupervised training. In this scenario, we don't have a correct answer. Maybe we ourselves may not know it. So in that case, what it basically doing is, it tries to find a pattern. It basically look at our data and tries to find a pattern. It tries to group together things that look similar, classify them together, and create a certain rule by itself. That's not we are going to cover. We are going to cover the first one only. Right, supervised training. So we'll start with a small code. Right. So we are going to write a code. This is a very simplified version. So there can be certain assumptions and certain parts missing. If you look at some other tutorials, you might find this one doesn't have certain functions and it doesn't have bias and things like that. This is because I want you to start with a very simple, simplified version. So you can actually call it as a perceptron, which is a simplified version which started some time ago. In fact, that was the beginning. But later on, we'll add some features to make it a more complete neuron. Right. So let's see what we can do about this one. So go to your Colab notebook, every notebook, and start a new file. We will call it as hello perceptron. Right. So what we are going to do is we are going to simulate this particular neuron. Now, can you remember how a neuron functions? What happened to this input? At this step, what's going to happen? Can you remember this example? When you have an input and a weight, what should be the first step?
Input multiplied by the weight.
Multiply by the weight. After that,
Summation of all the weight multiplied by this.
very good, very good. What's the next step?
Comparison with the threshold.
Yes, transfer function, in this case, comparison with the threshold. And the last step?
If it is above the threshold, then output is 1, otherwise 0.
Output is 0. Very good. Right. So you now know the steps, right? So it basically has, what are the mathematical operations involved in this one? This first part, what's the mathematical operation?
Multiplication.
Multiplication. Second part?
Addition.
Addition. Third part?
Logical step.
Yes, logical step. You are doing comparison, right? Now, I believe everyone knows how to do those three operations in Python, right? Anyone who doesn't know how to do it? Everyone knows it, right? Okay, now I want you to repeat it for this one, right? I want you to repeat it for this one. This one is very simple. It's even simpler than the one I showed you because it has only one input and one weight, right? So create variables with these names. Your input will be called as trin. Weight you can call as w1, and after this you can call it as the net. So after all the net summation, you compare it with the hard limit and you get the output. Can you write a small program for this one? I will then give you the values to be assigned for these variables. Okay. So for the time being, declare these variables, put these variables and write the function for this. After that, I will give you values. I can give you the values, but it's in the next slide. Right? For the weight, choose a random number between 0 and 1. For the input, let's say 5 or 10 or whatever number you like. So those are the things. Can you create that one and put it in the chat? Now, don't think too hard. Don't think about neural networks and everything. Just tackle one step at a time. What's the first step? You have to declare variables. What's the next step? You have to do a multiplication. What's the next step? Then you have to do some kind of addition. Then what's the next step? Like that, you step by step. Right? At the end, you will get the answer. Okay, now quickly do it and let me know your answer in the chat. You can put some random number, some number for the input and some random number for the weight, W1. And hard limit is 5 for the transfer function. Okay, weight should be between 0 and 1. Okay. what's happening? Okay, I'll start with something, but then you have to continue. Okay. So we know it should be, we should have 3R in, that means it's input and the weight. Okay, 3R in, and I mentioned you can put some number there. Let's put 7, lucky 7. And for the weight, it's called W1. Okay. For the weight, W or W1, whatever you like. Let's say W1. Can you remember what I said to you about the weight? What should be the weight? I said it should be a random number between 0 and 1. Okay, how can I assign a random number between 0 and 1? Okay, people have written some answers. Very good. So I need to have some random number between 0 and 1. So I can say random, but before doing that random, I need to import the random library. Okay, random.random. This would be a random weight between 0 and 1. So this will be my input. Right. So now you have the input and then you have the weight. What should be the next step? How can I calculate the net weight? What should come here? It should be the input times the weight. Now, lucky for us, we have only one input for this scenario. But if you have multiple inputs, you have to multiply each of them separately. So either you can use a for loop, or you can use a little bit of matrix manipulation kind of thing to get the things multiplied. But the idea is same. You have to multiply each input by its respective weight. What is this pop-up? Right. Next step, I need to compare with the threshold. Either I can define a threshold up here, or I can put it just inside it. If net value is larger than threshold is 5, then should equal 1. Otherwise, should be zero. I might print it while we are at it. Okay. So this is our first neuron. Let's see if it works. Okay, it prints something. It might not be useful, but at least there are no errors. No syntax errors. So it works. So that's the whole idea. Let's look at some of the answers that you have submitted. Very good. Most of you have done it. W1 random. Okay, Sachini, your answer seems okay. Okay, Lakmal, your one is also okay. you have assigned a weight as 1. Okay, fine, no problem. Isha, your one seems okay. Why is there a step 1, step 2? I'm not sure. Anyway, the program will run, but you have some extra steps in there. Okay, Nivant, you are taking input from the keyboard. Fine. Okay. Suddenly don't take the input. Your code is okay, but don't take the weight from as an input. Because later on we will learn weight is actually decided by the program itself. Okay, so user should not be able to input the weight. Since we are only starting, we don't know how to adjust the weight. That's why we manually put some weight. Even then we try to put it as random, right? So don't ask user to input the weight. Input neural network input, you can wait. It's better to be inside the code, right? Okay, we had come up to this point. Now from this point onward, what's going to happen is we are going to develop this particular program step by step, right? For most of the time, neural network, or it can be the genetic algorithm or whatever else. Now, the way we are learning is step by step. Now in the Python one, we had several different examples, discrete ones. They were not exactly interrelated. So even if you didn't do something, if you didn't find anything, you can continue. But now we will be using the previous step to move to the next step, right? So you need to follow it closely. If you miss something, immediately tell it, because in the following steps, you will need to know the previous steps and their solutions. Okay, now I believe everyone has come up with this neural network single neuron scenario. You have an input, you have a random weight, you compare with the threshold and output whether it's 1 or 0. Right. Now what can we do with it? Now this one effectively can't do anything. So what we basically need is to train it to solve a problem. Right. So this is the data set we are going to use. Now again, I'm telling you, this is just an example. In the real world, there are so many things wrong with this scenario, but I want to make it as easy for you to understand. That's why I'm doing it. First major difference is single neuron doesn't have any practical use. As I mentioned, it's a collection of neurons. So in real world scenario, you will have more than one neuron and they will have more than one input. Second important difference is you need to have a lot of sample data. More sample data you have, better your neural network will learn. So maybe 100, 500, 1000, 10,000, large amount of data. But in this example, it's not practical for me to give you to type all these things. Later on in the following day, in the next day, we will import a data set and do it. But for the today, we are just going to create a very simple data set. Only 1, 2, 3, 4, about 7 data samples. Third key difference is the application. The rule of thumb is if you can solve a problem using conventional programming or conventional wisdom, you should not move to soft computing. Okay. So if your problem can be solved using a normal if then else program or maybe statistical analysis or something else, it's better to use it, not the neural network, genetic algorithm or fuzzy logic or anything. But for this example, I have to use something simple. So this simple example, you can solve using a standard hard computing method. In fact, it will be easier. but I have to teach you this one. So when it becomes more and more complicated, you know what's happening. So that's why I am teaching you this simple example, right? So your goal here is to learn the neural network technique. Our major goal is not the solving of this problem, but to learn how we can use neural network for this problem. Okay, can you understand the difference? Let's say when you are little, someone is trying to teach you the multiplication table, right? So at the beginning, the teacher might say, okay, multiplication is basically adding the same thing again and again. So on the first day, he might say, okay, if you have 2 rocks in this group and another 2 rocks in this group, together you get 4 rocks. So 2 into 2 is 4. And if you have 3 groups, each having 2 marbles, then 2 into 3 is 6. So at that point, you might think, well, it's simply the addition. We can do it by adding. So rather than learning multiplication, you might think, okay, next time he gives me an answer, I will just add them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You will get the correct answer, but that was not what the teacher was trying to teach you, right? Because you have multiple ways to get the answer. Sometimes they want to teach you a different way. You might be able to solve it using another way, right? So the same thing here. Now, if you use conventional programming, you can solve it easily. But that's not what I am asking you to do. I am not actually asking you for the solution. I am just asking you it as an example to learn this new method. So your priority should be about learning the method, not about the actual answer, whether this guy is going to get a profit or not, right? So here's the example. So as I mentioned, so this is a very bad example. You can solve it using conventional programming, but I'm going to use it so you can easily understand it, right? So here's the scenario. Merchant want to sell Cretax over the eBay, okay. He look at the selling data and other, okay. So this person has some set of data. So this data consists of 2 different things, price and whether that person earns a profit or not. We have 20, 35, 70, 90 like that, and the profit is marked as yes, no, like that. So target is to train a neural network. So when you give the price, neural network is able to predict whether you are going to make a profit or not. So that's the idea. You will input the price for the neural network. It's going to predict whether it's a yes or a no. Is it clear? The question, the thing we are trying to solve, is it clear?
So I have a question.
Yes, ask, please ask.
I'm now thinking the price will be our input. The profit, no, yes and no, we have to take it as 1 and 0, which will be assigned as the weight. This is what I'm thinking.
Yes,
Is it correct?
Like, partially correct. You have to do a certain kind of encoding. Weights, however, we will handle it in a different way, right? So the method I will teach you, but for the time being, I want to make sure you understood my question, right? So we have this particular set of data with price and profit. Our target is to train a neural network to predict whether it's going to make a profit or not based on the price. So once I trained, I can say, okay, 30. If I sell it for 30, am I going to make a profit or not? Something like that. Is that question clear for everyone?
Yes.
Good. So then let's start working on our problem. Now, can you remember what kind of values or what kind of things we can input into a neural network? Can we input yes and no? Can we input things like yes and no to a neuron?
No.
No, we have to convert them to a number, right? So that's what we are going to do first. This is part of pre-processing. Before you can feed data into the neural network, sometimes you have to make a little bit of cleaning to do, right? So one step of this pre-processing is the encoding of non-numeric values to numbers, right? So as the step one, let's create two matrices, sorry, two lists. Okay, one list will be called as price, other list will be called as profit. Can you create that in let's where can you put it? Shall we put it in? We'll create in a new work sheet. So first create the two lists. You can put the names as price and profit. And when you are putting the data, make sure only the numbers are there. So no, you can represent as a 0. Yes, you can represent as sorry. Yes, you can represent as a 1. You can put some comments as well, like sample data or something like that. Let me know when you are finished, because I will have to go step by step. That means I will not be able to ask you every time after writing a single sentence whether you have finished it or not. So when you have finished it, either say it in the chat or put a thumbs up or whatever, so I can move to the next one. Finished? Does it take that long to type it? Am I කරලා කෙනෙක් ඉවරයි. Nakmal, you have typed and you have encoded it to zeros and ones. Very good. You have an extra extra comma at the end, or is there a value missing? 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yes,
5.
that I have to do.
Yeah. Those who weren't able to type, you can copy paste it from the chat. Lakmal has donated his code. Okay, right. That part shouldn't be hard, right? So I'm not going to follow that one. Next, I want to make a small change. Now I mentioned when we are training, we will need to go through each sample one at a time. Our neural network need to go through each sample one at a time, right? So we need a way to select one sample at a time. So can you can you modify your code? So it will print the price and the profit for each sample. Did you got what I'm meaning? For example, when you say these are the marks of students in this class, then I ask you to, okay, print the marks of each student in a separate line, right? Something like that. Something you need to go through, loop through all the data. So like that, I need you to loop through all the data, and for each sample. Now, when I say sample, this is one sample. This is another sample, another sample, another sample, right? So this is how it's usually represented, right? Each sample can have multiple values, multiple properties. For example, there might be a sample data set of patients. So the first row might be about patient's age. Second one about maybe the weight. Third one may be about the FBC or some other test. Fourth one might be about some other test result. So if you go with column wise, for each column you will notice, okay, this column I have first patient's data. Second column you have a second patient's data. Third column third patient's data, like that. Similarly, I want you to go through each of these sample, and for each sample print the price and the profit. First sample, print the price, print the profit. Go to the next sample, print the price, print the profit, like that. You have just learned the needing keyword. Today we learn about that keyword and put it in the chat. So you can do it using a for loop or a while loop. I will go through the while loop because although it's not the most efficient and the shortest way, you will be able to get some extra details, because sometimes when you write the smallest code, you may find it a little bit hard to understand, right? So I'm going to say while sample number is less than 7, So there are 7 samples, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 samples. Yes, but indexing is starting from 0. We can say print price sample number. Oops, I made a mistake. I should have put the plus plus. I forgot to put the plus plus. After executing, I will increment the sample by 1. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It should be 8. I can also print the other one as well if I want. So for each sample, now I am printing the price and the profit. Is it clear up to this point?
So is there a way to type the two things together like in a one line? Two print statements in a one line?
Both of them are numbers. It's adding them up. You should use something like this, probably. To string. I have to do the conversion. This is it's right.
Thank you, sir.
So that's one problem with this Python because as I mentioned, Python doesn't let you declare your variable type. So it had automatically taken this as a number, so I have to forcefully tell it to a string. Otherwise, it will just add 20 to 0 and say 20. Right? So that's how you can do it. But anyway, for the time being, I'm just going with the original one. Right, I believe everyone is up to this point. Now we are going to do something different. Not different, we are going to do the same thing that we have done in the earlier scenario. Right? So unfortunately for you, I think it's I can't remember the name of that girl. We are going to comment this out. You may want to print it in a single line, but I just put it there to see if the loop is working. So for the rest of the code, I don't actually need this. If you want, you can delete it, no problem. Right? In fact, I can delete it, that would be more clear. Now I am going to go into our previous code. This one. Can you remember? Here we had a single neuron where we input a number. In my case, I put 7 and I had assigned a random weight, do the multiplication, do something, and when I got the result. Now what I want to do, I want to input my sample data into this particular neuron, right? When I say my sample data, I am actually inputting price as my input. Now remember, there are two things in our samples. We have our input and we have our output. Input means the thing we are going to feed into the neural network. Output is the thing we want to get out once it is trained. Output is the thing that we are expecting it to do the prediction. Right? In our previous example, when we feed the temperature and humidity, I want to know whether how much rainfall I am going to get. So input is the temperature and the humidity. Output of the neural network is the amount of rainfall. Similarly, what is the input for this scenario? In this case, what is the input? What is the output?
Price.
Your sound is not clear.
Input is price.
Input is price. Output is
Profit.
Profit. Because we want to predict the profit when we input the price, right? Right. So now we go back here. In our single neuron example, this was our input. We manually typed 7. But instead of that, now I want to input price and get a prediction from the neural network. So this would be my output. Now, of course, the way we have written the code, we can't input all the 7 prices, all the 8 price samples at the same time. We have to input one at a time, right? So that would be our next step. I am going to use this neuron. You can copy paste it if you want, but instead of 7, for each iteration, you will be feeding a new price. For example, first time it would be 20, next time 35, then 70, 90, like that. Each time it goes through it, it will get a new input and it will predict an output. Okay. So I need to incorporate those two things. I have a neuron here, but its input is hard-coded, only a single value. I have my sample data here, but it doesn't have a neuron. But we are able to get one sample at a time. So I want to connect them together. So you have the neuron code here. And for each sample, you will get that price and input into the neuron and also print its predicted output. For the time being, don't worry whether that output is correct or not. We haven't trained it. That we can do later. For the time being, can you modify it? That can be our last exercise. Already 4 o'clock. So can you quickly modify it? If you want, you can copy paste it. Wait, one more thing, this random weight, move it outside this while loop. It should be somewhere outside any loop, because we are going to train our neural network. That means we are going to adjust the weight. So if you train it for one sample, I don't want to erase it by assigning a random number back. We'll assign the random number at the very beginning, but after that we'll keep it like that. We'll keep it without changing. So if I put a random weight here, it will start changing. So put that weight line outside the while loop. Other than that, rest is like the before. Can you quickly do it and put it in the chat? By the way, when is your next lecture? 4:30? Or you don't have any lectures after this one? Can I assume you don't have any lectures and continue? You have a lecture. When I say that, people are coming saying. So when is it? 4:30? 4:30. 4:30, okay. Then you better do it in 5 minutes and finish it, so you can have some tea break or something before the other lecture. Only thing you have to do is you have to merge the two scenarios. Instead of manually typing the input should be the price of a given sample. Okay, what should come here? How
First,
do
the
we?
price should be assigned to the as the input, step by step.
Yes. Can someone put it in the chat as a statement with proper syntax? But here we have to get the sample price and assign it to the input. How can we do it? How can we get the price of the sample? Okay. Anyone that has put some code while okay. That part is correct. Anyone else? This is an additional variable. You don't need to assign it. You can directly put it into the input, but for your clarification, I'm going to put it. Price. After this, what should be there? Okay, somebody has some. Shachini, you are almost there. Only difference is your WI assignation, weight assignation, bring it outside the while loop. Just after the I equals 0 or above it. Move that line above and you should be okay.
Sir, but the multiplication part I have done there inside the while loop. So if I take it out,
Hmm.
that means whole part that I want to take out.
No, only that random assignation. The reason is we don't want to randomly change the weight every time a new sample comes.
Only we are saying it one time. And
Yeah. So think of it like this. Now I mentioned this is like training by example. Let's say you have some person, maybe a dog, right? You want to train the dog to make some magic trick. I don't know, jump or roll or do something, right? You do it by example. Okay? Now let's say what's going to happen. You train it for 1 day, and after that dog sleeps. You give him some medicine, no hit it hard, so it lose all his memory. So on the following day, it starts from the beginning, right? And the following day again it trains, and again after the day ends, you hit it hard, so it gets amnesia and lose all his memory. So now what's going to happen? Each day you are training it, and after training it, you are forgetting everything that has been. That dog forgets everything that it had learned, right? So that's a very bad scenario, right? So similarly, in this case, our training means adjustment of the weight. So once it see the sample, we are going to adjust the weight. Once we start adjusting, we don't want to again touch that weight randomly. If we are going to adjust it, we are going to do it in a purpose to increase the accuracy, right? So if we put it inside the while loop, the problem is every time a new sample comes, it forget what it learns. The weights are again reset back into some random value, right? That's the reason. So only the weight should be outside. Other things are very okay. Your code is almost there, except that single problem.
thank you, sir.
Right. So this would be the sample num. So every time you do it, you get this one. What's happening? PLE. It's not a prince, it should be the price. Right. So we can see each time it goes through it loop, I am getting the price of these things. Now I don't want to actually print it. It's a waste of time. So I'm going to comment it out. So once I get the price of the current sample, I need to assign it as the input. So in the previous scenario, I have used this one as TRin. I can do the same scenario. TRin, but instead of 7, I can say price of the current sample. Right. You get this sample and you assign it as the input, and then you're going to calculate the output. Output calculation is the same except for this particular line. That should be outside this for loop. So I'm putting it at the top. And also you have to indent it. So this part is neural network calculation. Print the output. Yes, that's also there. So now when I run it, I should be able to get random is not defined. Okay. This is a new script. I need to import the random file, random library. Okay. Now our neuron is done. It's not doing a very good job. It's saying whatever the price I'm selling, I will always get a profit. So we are going to change it later in the following day. We are going to adjust it because this is not trained. Our weight is just randomly assigned. We are not training it. So it's randomly spouting out some answers. On the next day, we are going to teach, we're going to learn about a training algorithm. So for each of these inputs, we are going to adjust this weight, this W1. So it becomes more and more accurate. So that's about the code. I hope you got the idea about this particular code. It's not hard. This is just list, random number generation. This is a while loop to go through each of these samples. And for each sample, you are doing the usual neural network scenario, multiplying by the weight, comparing it, and printing the output. That's all there is to this particular script. Anything you want to ask before I wind up? Okay, if there are no questions, I will wind up for today. We will see you on the next week. Have a nice week.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.